everybody. I'm Lauren Simonetti. Thank you for joining us for Small Business Wednesday. Let's go straight down to Miami. We have Sam Caucci with the Sales Huddle Group, a sports training and advisory company, joining us now. Hi, Sam. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. You have some advice for the president to really help small business owners. What is that advice?
Well, I think that today, in today's landscape, there's so many small business owners that, there's so many different things on their mind overall. And, I'm down here working with a client, and we have everything from tax reform on their minds to, the ever-changing market with regard to healthcare reform. I think that overall, small business owners, maybe not advice for the president, but small business overall, small business owners have to get better focused to move forward with all the different challenges that are facing them today.
Right. Yesterday we got a report from the National Federation of Independent Businesses called the Small Business Optimism Index, and it looks like small businesses are finally turning a little bit optimistic, that level at a 6-month high. Do you think that's the case? Are you or small businesses that you know optimistic?
I think that, most of them are getting more optimistic. I think that on one hand, you have small business owners that have a choice that they're being faced with today, and a very critical choice. And the choice is, on one hand, to either A, find a way to increase sales, better train their staff, and find ways to offset these rising costs that we're facing every day by investing in our people and increasing sales. The other side of the coin, which is the more dangerous decision to make, is to try to become more efficient by cutting operating costs, cutting payroll, finding ways to outsource and move these expenses off their balance sheet. So it's a very important choice. I would say overall you're seeing more businesses that are putting their head down and finding ways to train their staff.
So option one.
Option one. I think overall more companies today are finding a way. They got to start, again, we're starting to see the issue of health insurance costs start to kind of become real for owners today, right? Especially with 2014 right around the corner. Business owners are having to make that decision with, are we going to worry about sales, or are we going to sit around and complain about what's happening in Washington? And it's okay for a certain amount of time, but it's time for small business owners to begin to move forward and find ways to increase sales. And the things in Washington are major issues, but at some point we have to figure out how to move forward.
A lot of small business owners and small businesses in general complain that they can't find educated or qualified staff with the skills that they need to really help their business. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. I think that there's a major problem with, and I think it's fingers being pointed both ways from both the universities and small businesses. As a small business owner and working with small business owners, the quality of talent coming out of universities are not built to the specifications of our economy today. And it's a hard thing to say, but I would say that we have a very lazy, fat university infrastructure that is educating students for a market that was in the 70s and 80s, and with businesses trying to find ways to do what I said first, option one, generate more sales. Well, we need students coming into the market that are prepared to do that and are built to do that. And more often than not, we're seeing that again, 15% unemployment or underemployment with students Americans between the ages of 20 and 25. We have to find ways for universities to better prepare candidates for the industry and the economy today. And at the same time, companies have to find a way to better train these team members once they get them on their team.
Sam, can you give an example of how perhaps a recent interviewee did not have the skills that they should have gotten in college when they were on that interview?
We do, being in the sports space, we deal with a lot of teams from the professional sports side and health and fitness clubs and whatnot. We do a tremendous amount of interviews in ticket sales. And again, sports being kind of a sexy industry, there's over 400 universities that have sports management programs today. And again, from an interview perspective, I had a student the other day who were hiring for a sales position, and first interview, right, completed, left, follow-up steps had to happen, and I just don't think that we're not followed through on. So kind of summarize that example, there's a lot of missing links with how, from a sense of entitlement, how students today are supposed to act and perform to actually capture the jobs that are available.
So you're saying the college isn't preparing the student for the the interpersonal skills needed on the job interview, not necessarily the skill set to do the job?
I would say it's both.
Both.
I would say that universities.
Even worse.
I would say. I'll give you a case, a perfect example. With universities today, obviously one of the #1 profit centers on a university campus are sports, right? Generating ticket sales, sponsorship, and whatnot. And one of the big movements you've seen in the last few years is universities that have hired or outsourced their sales programs to outside firms coming in to sell tickets for them. And it's an interesting point, because if you're a center of excellence as an academic institution, wouldn't you think that the business programs and the students on their campus would have the ability to be able to step in and sell tickets for a collegiate program? Why is it that, again, education programs are having to turn to the private sector to find companies to take over the sale of their most prized inventory? So the movement in that one regard has been interesting, because with the enormous amount of universities that are, available and are out there today, and the costs that are charged and incurred by students, there is still a very limited amount of programs that are focused on sales, a very limited amount of programs focused on negotiation, and these are the entry-level jobs that students are finding. They're finding entry-level internships, they're finding jobs that require them to move inventory for companies, but they're coming out with an expectation to do marketing.
And Sam, you are very eloquently answering the question that so many of us are asking. How is it that the class of 2013, some 2 million graduates, are going to be not only ill-prepared for the job market, but some 40% of them are likely to do jobs, odd-and-end kind of jobs, babysitting, waitering, doing jobs that they did not get their degree in. So they paid for a degree they're not even using, and you just provided us with some reason as to why that's happening. I also wanted to talk about the other option that you brought up earlier, cutting costs. We're seeing a lot of the big companies do this. They're not really growing their revenue, but they're meeting their profit expectations because they're sucking all the life out of everything that they can. Do you think small businesses are following in the big business footsteps? And if they are, when do you reach the point where you really can't do any more with less?
I think it's a very good point you're making. I mean, I see every day small businesses try to look at their balance sheet and say, how do we cut marketing expenses? How do we further cut payroll? You see a lot of I've seen a lot of small businesses move to 1099ing a lot of employees to get around some of the existing issues with regard to health care and other items. But, the challenge comes in when you're cutting so many costs that you're getting to the point where you're impacting the customer's experience today. And I think we have a more educated consumer. Speaking from somebody who our company does training and sales, and we deal with the curve of consumer intelligence when they're approaching any product or retail or service experience. Customers are more intelligent, and beware the companies and the small businesses that are making the decision to cut costs that impact the most valuable asset they have, which is their product service experience.
Sam, that was great. You really raised some strong points there. Sam Caucci with the Sales Huddle Group. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day. We're going to go to a break. We'll be back right after this.